Henry Cejudo, Olympic gold medal in 2008. 10 years later, 2018, inducted into the National Wrestling Hall of Fame. Couple months after that, he beats Demetrius Johnson to become the second UFC flyweight champion, ending DJ's historic reign. And then he goes out and beats the consensus greatest bantamweight of all time in 32 seconds with a knockout. Obviously, there was some controversy at the end of it, but at least can we start with Henry the Messenger Cejudo, who has just put himself in a class of fighters and combat sports athletes that just has not that much company, man. What a huge W for Henry this weekend.
Unbelievable, man. And listen, a lot of times you're one win away from having it change your life. And I think that win over Demetrius Johnson really proved to Cejudo that not only can he be a champion in the sport, but that he can be one of the all-time greats. And I think when you did something like that, when you've climbed a mountain, like defeating a Demetrius Johnson, a guy who many people believe to be the greatest of all time, that's going to do things for you physically, mentally, spiritually. And I think he carried that momentum and that confidence into this fight against TJ Dillashaw. And he went out there and took care of business. I mean, Cejudo should be called the Golden Boy. If there's someone who should be called the Golden Boy, it's Henry Cejudo, a guy who, you know, was on the national team in high school, was the #1 guy in the country in his teens. Then went on to win gold in the Olympics, you know, defeating all those greats. I mean, it's unbelievable what he's done, both in wrestling and in combat sports. This is perhaps one of the greatest combat sports athletes of all time at this point, and the fact that he was able to beat an absolute killer in TJ Dillashaw, and we'll talk about Dillashaw on what I thought about him and how he looked, but my goodness, Cejudo is an absolute savage.
I like that Golden Boy moniker. I really do. And you're right. I think the Demetrius Johnson win was sort of the huge feather in his cap, and maybe the win that his career 10, 15, 20 years from now will be remembered for. But in terms of at least his mixed martial arts legacy, forgetting about the Olympic gold medal for a second, right? This really cements that, because it almost, you know, he's at the post-fight press conference and he's intimating, you know, how can TJ Dillashaw now go defend a belt 10 pounds north of here off a loss to the guy, you know what I mean? So this was one of the risks, of course, for Dillashaw, is that if you do lose that fight going down 10 pounds south, it illegitimizes the bantamweight championship a little bit. But for Cejudo, legacy-wise, Kenny, this is a huge win. And I also think, too, for Cejudo, his mission was to win an Olympic gold medal and then to become a UFC champion, right? And so some wondered where the hunger would be going into this fight, right? Because he put so much into beating DJ and just getting that UFC championship. But clearly, like Captain Eric Albarracin said, and sort of as you intimated, this helped him take it to the next level. I mean, he's far from finished.
Yeah, absolutely. And listen, just to be an Olympic athlete, you see the way that Cejudo moves, the kind of physical characteristics that he brings in there. And not only the physical characteristics, but the mental abilities to get to that level and compete at that level, and all of the resources that he's had as an Olympic athlete is, you know, a huge reason of why he's in the position he's in today in mixed martial arts as well. And you could say the same about guys like Daniel Cormier and the Ronda Rouseys, the people that have competed at an elite level for a long time in sports where you are compared against some of the best countries out there. It's just a completely different level. And the fact that he has put himself in this position now to be not only competent as a striker, but dangerous as a striker and good with his submissions and solid with his positioning, just shows just how special Henry Cejudo really is.
I want to get your thoughts on the stoppage here quickly before bringing Ray Longo into the conversation, because I'm afraid a lot of our conversation with him might talk about that. I want to get you on the record first. I will just say, largely, I thought it was a little bit early, having gone back and watched it this morning, especially in a championship setting. Maybe I would like a little bit of a longer leash, not unlike Dana White sort of said after the fact. But generally speaking, I defer to these referees who are right there on top of it, and especially a guy in Kevin McDonald, who, in my money, for my money, really is one of the better mixed martial arts referees out there. So I like that he was convicted in his decision. I did think it was a touch early.
Agreed. And I can't say listen, he was dropped twice, right? So can you say it was a bad stoppage? No. Can you say it was a great stoppage? Probably not either. And listen, This is TJ Dillashaw coming down. This is a former champion at 135 pounds, fighting at 125 pounds for the belt. So this isn't just any old fight here. This is a very important fight. And I think a lot of us, TJ Dillashaw included, and of course probably Henry Cejudo as well, because now controversy is going to be kind of circling his win, which is unfortunate. But I think you kind of have to let him go a little bit longer. With that said, when I saw TJ Dillashaw in the octagon right before that fight against Cejudo, I said, he does not look right. I was watching with a few guys, and I said, he doesn't look right. He looks like I did at 145 pounds, where, okay, this guy looks like he's in shape, but he doesn't look like he's ready to fight. I mean, his body, he did not look strong to me. He did not look ready to go. He looked way too skinny, man, and I don't know. Yeah. Dillashaw is amazing. I've said it before, and I'll say it again. It's one thing to make the weight. You can get on the scale. It's quite another thing to compete at the weight.
Right. And we'll have plenty more on that later. And one quick quote here from Kevin McDonald. He texted me, I'm still confident in the stoppage based on what I had to work with, but I just feel bad when there's drama. And I think that's the rub when it comes to these referees. They just don't want to be a part of the story, not unlike a play-by-play guy. If the show ends and no one's talking about you, ultimately that's what the goal is. But Kevin McDonald, the dust will settle, and I think he'll learn from this. And again, he was convicted in his decision. I think in a lot of respects, that's all you can ask for. All right, well, a man who has been involved in no shortage of controversial fight-ending situations, the coach, the great Raymond Peter Longo. Let us get to him.
It's now time for the Ray Longo Minute.
I want you to punch a hole in his fucking chest. That's what I want.
The Ray Longo Minute. Starring Ray Longo. The John Anik and Kenny Florian podcast.
Well, I don't care if you're driving right now. Raise both hands if you missed hearing Ray Longo's voice on a weekly basis. You know, I mean, we put this guy on the show so we could talk to him every week. And when there was some concern that maybe this podcast would be going away with finality, the people were very nervous about that. Raymond, good morning.
Good morning, John. You knocked it out of the park, first ESPN show.
Oh, thank you, man. Thank you so much. Well, thank you, man. So, before we get going, man, and I'm happy to have you back, obviously, how about your boys on television this weekend? Chris Weidman and John Vellante and Raging Ally Quinta and Aljamain Sterling. And it seems to me like this was planned, that if you missed it on the telecast, I'm not sure, Kenny, if you saw it, but that John Vellante, when they did a celebrity shot, that he was going to pick Chris Weidman's nose on national TV. They felt like that would be the way to go, Ray.
You know, yeah, TJ, I tell you, my boys were representing well. They were picking each other's noses, screaming like a pack of wild hyenas. I mean, very proud to be sitting home watching TV and watch this unfold. I got to tell you, I was like, what am I even looking at?
Yeah,
hey,
man.
We're fighters, for God's sake.
I'm telling you. Hey, well, you know, I think the drinks were there, some heavy pours on Saturday night, but no, I think they represented well, all things considered. So I know it's been a busy few weeks for you. Obviously, you were in Japan with Uluka Sasaki. You watched this ESPN debut this weekend. Before we talk about Cejudo specifically, how did you feel the ESPN debut went on a whole? Did you notice any major changes? Did you like what you saw overall?
Yeah, I thought it was good. I wasn't excited about the card, but I think the fight definitely lived up to everything you could expect. A lot of finishes. And, I thought it did a great job. I thought it was great having Trevor Whitman in there giving his, analysis. I thought that was a nice little thing. He's a good dude with a nice perspective on things. And, I thought they made some changes. And, I thought you and DC, like usual, and really did a great job. And DC's definitely come into himself. I think you guys play off each other really well. Great. I had a good time chilling out at home and watching it. No glitches with the app or anything like that, syncing it to the TV. So good. I think it was good.
Well, Ray, what did you think about the stoppage on Saturday night? Did you think it was a little early?
I thought for a championship fight, it was definitely early for sure. Now, I don't think anything should be taken away. I don't think you could argue it. Look, because if you're a safety guy, the ref did a good job. You got to protect the guy, and I don't know if that was going to get any better for him. But as a coach and as a fan, I think it's a championship fight. You have to let that go a little longer. But I don't know if it would have gotten any better. It looked like Cejudo was possessed, and he wasn't going to let him off the hook. So, who knows? And I got to tell you, look, Dillashaw, I think, kind of unraveled in the post-fight. Interview. I don't think that's going to draw many fans. I thought that was, you can't be a sore loser because, look, at the end of the day, he put himself in that position for the ref to even make that call. So he got there somehow.
Right.
So that wasn't going good for him in the 30 seconds it lasted. So, yeah, if I'm Cejudo, I'm happy with that win. I did what, that kid did what he had to do. And unfortunately, I think the weight cut had a huge part of that.
I agree with you, man. If I want TJ, if I'm his coach and I want TJ to fight him again, I'm going to make sure it happens at 135 and not 125. But, Ray, as far as the flyweight division is concerned, was that a statement for Henry Cejudo to keep this division around in the UFC?
Well, look, I happen to like the 125-pound division myself. And I got to tell you, man, Henry, and that's what I'm saying, if you're looking from like a marketing standpoint, man, this kid comes across great. And he said it before the fight, he wants to sit that division. I mean, that night was a home run for Henry Cejudo on a million different levels. I thought he spoke well. He articulated everything really nicely. He came out there guns blazing. And the TJ kind of said it himself. He didn't expect the guy to be that aggressive. Well, that's what happens. But I think he made a statement for the division. I don't know if it's enough, but I have two 125-pounders that got let go, Sasaki and this other kid, who's really good. You know what I mean? I got him fighting on the local circuit in a couple of weeks. But so for me, it kind of stinks too. And I think these guys, there's other young kids in the gym when they heard that division was leaving that were little guys. They were kind of like blown away. They were upset. Like, that's what they were looking for. They were looking to, to fight in the UFC one day, and that is being told that the division isn't going to exist. So I hope they keep it around. I'm a big fan of the 125ers. I think look at Benavidez' fight. Look at Benavidez' fight with the other kid he fought. I mean, those scrambles were unreal. I mean, they were back and forth, and if you're a fan of fighting, that was some pretty cool shit I was looking at.
Yeah, no, there's certainly enough talent to sustain the division, but I think more salient is your point off the top that here you have this guy in Henry Cejudo that is so marketable and just so well-versed in all the areas you'd like him to be well-versed in as a champion and as a brand ambassador. Oh, and by the way, this is far and away the best weight class for him, right? I don't even have to see him go up to 35 to know that he was custom-made to compete in mixed martial arts at 125 pounds. So if you're Dana White, though, Ray, if you're Dana, right, what do you do? Right, because you have Rafael Assunção and Marlon Moraes waiting in the wings at 135 pounds. They fight in the main event 2 weeks from now, so that'll give you some clarity at 35. I mean, do you run this thing back because it only lasted 32 seconds? And if you do, which weight class do you do it in?
I think again, from a likability standpoint, the worse Dillashaw got, the better Henry Cejudo got. You know what I mean? The more he pounded, the more that guy said, I'll fight you at any weight class. So I think it's fair to fight at 135. I think it was, I believe Dillashaw was very, focused on making that weight, which is admirable, and I think he deserves a shot at 135 against Cejudo, and I think Cejudo will do it. So I'm Dana White. I make that fight at 135.